Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a deep dive into the world of college admissions.
My name is Vince, and I've been doing admissions since 1989 and college counseling since 1998 in California.
I'm Mark Stucker, and I'm the founder and producer. Our mission is to make college knowledge available to all. We care deeply about your kid. We believe college is a match to be made and not a prize to be won. We believe in being genuine and transparent. We are committed to covering a variety of topics, including the tough subjects. Thanks to your generosity, we're committed to providing a minimum of 10 hours of fresh, commercial-free content every month, with episodes every Monday and Thursday. We have a variety of co-hosts because we believe and value diverse perspectives. You're our listening family, and we get great joy every time we meet with you as we do our best to give you tools so your students can soar and reach their limitless potential. Friends, I'm coming to you from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina at a family reunion. This week in the news, Vince and I just hit the mic and talk about a range of issues. You get to be a fly on the wall and listen to what we talk about. And then Jin Chow is back for the final part of my interview with her on Work Labs. And friends, between when Jin and I recorded this interview, I found out about a couple services I didn't even know Polygence was offering. So I've asked Jin if she could tell us about 2 additional services that Polygence offers. So you'll hear that at the very end. Then transition to my interview with Daniel Lachance. We've done 6 students 6 weeks in a row, and this is part 6 of 6. Dan's talking about how he used a number of things, including clubs and co-ops and internships and certifications to land a coveted job at Microsoft. Friends, I do have one announcement before we dive into today's episode, and that is we are less than a month away now from our special episode 600, and that is going to be a community episode where we all share tips with each other that have helped us, that we've learned along the way. Had a couple really good ones come in, so thank you who are non-procrastinators out there. Got messages to us early. It's very helpful for our planning. If you have a tip, something you've learned that you would like to share with the rest of our listening family that's helpful to you and your family, just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK. That's SpeakPipe, SpeakPipe.com/YCBK. You'll see a big orange button. Hit click, record, and we'll get you on our special episode 600. All right, let's transition to Vince and I just chit-chatting about college admissions.
And now it's time for Hot Topics in the News.
Vince, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing great.
So listen, I wanted to ask you a question. And I've been talking about it on the podcast, but and you and I have been talking about it a little bit, even with this compact, and one of the tenets of the compact being requiring schools to go back to standardized testing and moving away from holistic and contextual. And so what advice are you giving your students around submitting scores to highly selective schools that say they're test optional, but maybe they went just test optional in the pandemic? Let's say it's not a rising senior. Let's say it's somebody like, who's 2027 or even 2028, like just a little younger. Like, are you telling them you kind of need to prepare for the fact that this test optional thing might be going away? Or are you just saying, hey, they're test optional, just kind of work with them how they are right now? Like, how are you doing that for, you got the Notre Dames and the Dukes and the Vanderbilts and the WashUs and, a bunch of these schools that went test optional in the pandemic, but increasingly their peers seem to be going back, Northwestern, I don't know if I mentioned them, back to mandatory testing.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think as an independent counselor, and even a high school counselor, you have to know your audience. And so
right.
if you have a student who's going to be a heavy hitter, you have to prepare them for what might happen in the future. So, later on, we're going to talk about, computer science and being a computer science major. And we can already see the shift there with AI. So I feel like with standardized testing for that, freshman, sophomore, even the juniors, if they sort of come into it late, the juniors that I'm working with now, who I think are going to be applying to schools that might switch over or applying to schools where it's required, they've got to start early. And I think what we lose, and I think this is something I hope these schools are thinking about, but I don't see any evidence that, MIT or Stanford feel an obligation to sort of help the tenor of the testing anxiety, because now I have kids who are never going to score above 1400. They're not going to apply to those schools thinking, all of them. You've got every family willing to invest resources for testing, believing that somehow will make a difference. And I feel that it, in some ways, it compromises students who aren't going to be in that sort of applying to those schools. But if you believe that they are, then you've got to prepare for the future and make sure that you can pivot and you're not left holding the bag and trying to get test scores in the summer before their senior year.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not the MITs and Stanfords. Like they've already carved out their space of going back to testing, right? Caltech. I mean, the places that have gone back, like they've made their decision. I'm just increasingly feeling like the writing is on the wall for you never want to say almost every school, because every school is an individual school. But here's what I'm looking at. There are certain schools that have really carved out their space, and they're, avowedly committed to test optional.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago has been in that camp. Wake Forest since 2007. Obviously, the Bates and Bowdoins and lots of the liberal arts schools have been there for a while.
Yeah.
But when I look at that group that just really went test optional with the pandemic, especially the national universities, because it's this, for a long time there have been lots of liberal arts and science schools that have been test optional. But if we got a national university, like, whoa, George Washington, whoa, Temple, whoa, Wake. I remember that was always a really big deal. Anytime any of the national universities went to test optional. Friends, there really is a difference with the selective liberal arts schools. I mean, just this week, Swarthmore committed to 5 years of test optional admissions. Now, they've been doing test optional admissions for a while, so it's 5 more years of test optional admissions. And I so appreciate the 5-year commitment, because it just helps us a lot as counselors. Okay, now I can have confidence of where you're at, versus the schools that 1 year at a time, they roll it out. And by the way, that's a telltale sign that they've kind of got 1 foot in and 1 foot out of this test optional admissions world, when they say, we're announcing for 1 more year and then we'll be reevaluating. That is not, as the kids like to say, 10 toes down. I got to thinking, what selective liberal arts schools actually are requiring test scores these days? It's extremely rare. So what we're seeing is a divergence and it's been a divergence for a while between what the selective liberal arts colleges are doing and the national selective universities. But the divergence has never been more stark than it is right now, as the two groups seem to be going in different directions. When I look at that group and I look at them, and especially at the most selective tier, like the ones that are what I would call like Ivy peers, right? Mm-hmm. Rice, Vanderbilt, Notre Dame, Duke, Northwestern, tons and tons of Ivy overlap with them. And as well as really highly selective publics, by the way, too, right? UVA, UNC. I differentiate the West Coast, because the West Coast schools, unless they just get pressured, and you and I have talked about the incredible pressure that the administration is putting them under to sort of change their admission policies, but they're really dug in and they're happy where they are, right? Like where the UCs are, the whole West Coast. I mean, they're really happy with having test-free policies or test optional. So I differentiate them. I see them more like the Bowdoins, the Bates, the Wakes, the Chicagos, Columbia. Now, Columbia's interesting. They're the only Ivy, but they are very dug in. I mean, their language makes it clear, like, we will never go back. Like, they're really dug in on it. So I don't put that group in the same category. But I'm talking about the ones that when you would ask them about test optional and they would say, well, it's a year by year thing. I'm not optimistic about that group. I think overwhelming majority of those schools are caving. And I feel like we owe it to our students to tell them that. And, so it sounds like we're kind of similar in that regard. Do you also differentiate with the West Coast? Do you think, no, the West Coast pretty dug in? I mean, you talk to a UCLA, where obviously UCs aren't making the decision at the individual school level. We know that, or do you think even that might flip? If it did flip, I think it would be because of pressure coming from 16th Avenue, Pennsylvania Avenue, not because they've just like they feel very independent of a competitor's going to do it, so therefore we need to do it. But I don't know if I feel that level of confidence from. I don't. Let me just not speak, circuitously. I don't feel that level of confidence from the ones that just went test optional in 2020 in that national university category. Do you think you see it the same, or do you think you have a different perspective?
I might have a different perspective because UCLA caved very quickly with the settlement for, when the federal government came after them. I don't know where they hope to find all that money, because if they had it to spend, I wish they were going to spend it on the education of California students. So it makes me wonder, because that decision doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens, the UC Board of Trustees, the governor, the state leaders of the state legislature, they all have a hand. And we know that, well, we don't know, but we believe that Gavin Newsom will probably run for president. And so he has a stake in the game. So I think that the UC feels very confident. They love the numbers that they're seeing in terms of what the incoming classes are looking like. And they've been able to, for more than 20 years, been able to enroll more and more diverse classes, because they know how to look for that talent, and graduation rates have stayed very steady. So there is a model, but increasingly to, sort of duck and run for cover. I wonder too with Columbia, because they're, part of we'll talk about this article in the future, but part of the compact is like return to test scores, everybody. So Columbia settled as well. So it makes me wonder how committed, Columbia will be.
You didn't say anything I disagree with. Mm-hmm. So even some of the most, ardently committed schools to test optional potentially can flip when the weight of the federal government is coming down on them and they're facing hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever it is in expenses. I'll just use that term, that they weren't expecting. That could cause any of them to flip. But yeah, I just sort of wondered if what you're picking up there. I think you agree, though. The UCs are very happy with where they are with testing. I mean, I had a chance to talk to several leaders on my trip there last summer, and they were very pleased with where they're at. But when you start talking about big money can make a lot of people change a lot of things.
It sure does. And then, the big players, USC, I mean, Stanford already did it, but USC has new leadership coming. Carol comes from Carol Kim, who take over the role of running admissions and financial aid at USC, comes from a test optional experience. I think her entire career, Cal Arts and NYU, has long been committed. So it'll be interesting to see where USC goes. And they're already dabbling with, ED, with the Marshall School of Business. Mm-hmm. But if USC drives a lot of applications in California, if they are no longer test optional, then it will really have an impact on California students and how they're choosing to prep, because you've got, kids above 3.5 who want to put their hand in that applicant pool. And if that means they have a test score, you're going to see a drive back towards test prep for students who are sort of in the middle and not, sort of heavy hitters, driving towards Caltech and Stanford and Harvard and MIT.
You know, one thing I noticed, Vince, it's amazing the correlation between the mindset towards standardized testing and the policy of standardized testing. So let me give you an example. It's not uncommon for me to work with somebody from California, and they don't even have any intention on taking the tests.
Right.
Like, they're like, I like the UCs, I like CSUs. I'm a California person. They're looking at the Washington and the Oregons, the Pacific, and they're like, I don't even see why I even need to do this. That's not uncommon. Now, not obviously the ones that are thinking more like highly selective East Coast schools, they tend to think very differently. But their mindset toward testing is, I don't even see if I need to do it. Like, that's not uncommon. I encounter that. If I'm working with somebody in Florida that even required testing during the pandemic, let's say I'm in my first meeting or second meeting, they're talking about testing constantly before I can even listen to anything. Like, this is what they got on the test. They're taking it again. They're doing prep. Like, their mindset is almost like this is the mindset that come in to the the counseling scenario. Like, this whole thing is going to hinge on what my score is on this test, just because they're coming from a milieu of required testing. And really see how it seeps into their thinking in terms of how they think of testing as this really, really big priority, this all-encompassing thing. It's incredible the correlation you see between the policy that a state has toward testing and the mindset that parents and students. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. Yeah.
Mm.
Anything else that you're observing sort of as you look at this year and you watch? We've both been in this game for a long time now. Are you seeing anything else out there that, our families tell us, Vince, they love it. In fact, somebody put this in the survey. They're like, I like it when you and Vince just hit the mic and talk. So I'm trying to do Burger King, have it your way, right? I try to listen to what our listeners like.
Well, we're still waiting. We're still waiting for Michigan. What are they going to do? Wisconsin, are they going to go ED next year?
Oh yeah. Who else goes ED in Publix is definitely something. And then I'm going to be really surprised if between this year and next year there are not a couple pretty big announcements that are coming from and Wisconsin is one that wouldn't surprise me.
No. They I'm sure there wasn't a big hug sent to Michigan when they dropped that bomb in the summer.
Well, I haven't seen numbers yet. They may be out. I just haven't been reading all the sources I normally look at, but I predict that Michigan's going to announce a really big ED number. Like, I think there's going to be a number they're going to be really happy with. And that's also going to resonate. I mean, Connecticut's first year, it was 35% of their class. And the very first year they announced it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But, Connecticut did something that was probably responsible for getting them a third of their class through early decision. They removed EA as an option.
Yes.
So they made you do what the private schools do. It's ED or RD.
Yeah.
And I think that probably, probably another 5-10% said, oh, and let me just ED.
Yeah. I think Michigan, we're sort of like, sports commentators here. I feel like we give it back and forth with, basketball or football. But I think that Michigan is not really going to bend over too much to take students who are sort of out of the most competitive realm. But I do think those ED candidates from defer to wait list are going to be the first ones they pull. That's my prediction.
Yeah, a lot of times when schools go to a new plan, they're pretty conservative the first year because they don't want to run into that scenario where they're like, snap, look at these incredible kids that came in later and we don't have space for it.
Right.
I felt Chicago was very conservative, the ED0. I felt like I saw a lot of kids that didn't get the results they wanted this year there. That didn't surprise me. Because they still got ED1, ED2, EA, RD. I mean, they don't really take anybody from RD, so I guess we could forget that. But and then I really saw that with Wisconsin last year. I don't know if I told you this, but I had 4 kids out of state, like high 3.9 unweighted GPAs, all 1550 or higher, usually 1570, that never got into Wisconsin last year, like in early action. Now, every one of them got in. They all got deferred. They all got in, but they all got, and they all got picked up. But I felt I knew what was going on. Remember last year they went to that 5% plan for the first year?
Yeah.
And so they weren't sure what the numbers were going to be like, and they got to kind of see how it played out. And then, once they had the bigger picture, they could take them all. They got one of them. They all scattered. One went to UNC, where my daughter's at, Chapel Hill. One went to Texas. One went to Wisconsin. I'm trying to remember where the fourth one went. But, that I kind of see that when people have a new program, and it makes sense, right? Like, play a little cautious this year. It's a new thing. We don't know. Nobody likes having ridiculous superstars that come in later and you feel like you have no spots for them because you gave it all away.
Gave it all away, but they gave it all away to full pay and pretty darn strong. Like, it's not like
Sure.
You're talking about maybe they have 4 Bs instead of like none. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, these are schools that we're already going to attract a really strong applicant pool already, so they can afford to do that. I have a question for you on a completely different topic.
Sure.
Because you work with a lot more USC kids than me. I have 4 kids at USC, and you sometimes I've known you to have more than that in 1 year sometimes.
I have a lot. I have a lot, and then spread out over the 4 years. They need to send me a check.
Yeah. Well, you're like Mr. USC to me. Like, you really know that school well. And when we're in our text message group, I've got a text message group.
See my shirt, USC Marshall. See my shirt?
Yeah, look at you. He's sporting a USC Marshall shirt. Look at him, man. You're repping. They really do need to pay you. They do need to pay you. So this is my question, and I mentioned this on the podcast recently.
Yeah.
So I have a student there from the Midwest doing, that real estate business program they have there.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And I am blown away by her networking. And as I talk to her, she goes on and on and on about how much that is emphasized there. Like,
yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Your LinkedIn and reaching out to everybody. And I know a lot of schools emphasize that, especially in the business schools. I find it a lot more in the business schools that networking is really strong, especially the highly selectives. But have you been like as impressed as I am with like the sort of emphasis on networking that USC like inculcates in that business school, like right from inception?
Yes. It's interesting. I think that the real estate program, it's in 2 schools, at the Price School and then now in the Marshall School. And so they have a lot of alumni in those fields, and they really promote that connection. That's one of USC's primary strengths. And I like the connections that I see. I have students who've been able to take advantage of that. I wonder sometimes in other areas how much that those connections work. So, they have, they're strong in film, they're strong in music business, they're strong in innovation, they're strong in real estate. Absolutely. But I wonder if they're getting the same play and, finance and consulting. Are they faring as well as Wharton or Ross or Kelly or Moody? I'm not exactly sure, because I have two brothers that graduated recently, and they did well. They did better than they did in high school at USC, but they've been, really having to work hard to find opportunities to work after USC. Now, part of that is they come from a background and culture where sort of networking is not part of what happens. It's just, it's just who and then and the parents work it out is the way I would describe it. So now they realize that they probably should have taken advantage of some of the opportunities were there, but I wonder how much they're accessing and getting support in the first, 1 to 3 years after Marshall in finance and consulting. But other areas, extraordinary.
Vince, what are some schools that you're finding are either highly desirable or even, I'll say, acceptable to your families that like 10 years ago, they wouldn't have been?
TCU.
Yep. Doesn't
TCU
surprise me at all.
is
He's
jumping.
from Orange County.
Oh, really?
And yeah, he's from Orange County. And so he's done a great job with TCU. When I was there, we had a chance to grab lunch, and he said that it's about 1 out of every 6 kids at TCU right now are from California.
Wow.
And he's like, when we look at our standardized testing policy, we got to take into consideration California kids can't even hardly get the test.
Yeah.
So so TCU, that does not surprise me.
Yeah.
That's true in Atlanta, by the way, too. Like Westminster, I don't know if you've had anybody from Westminster School. You probably know it from your time in admission. Westminster School, right? It's in the Buckhead, and it's the wealthiest school in Georgia. There was a time they only sent kids to SMU,
Right.
and now and now their SMU TCU numbers are the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that doesn't surprise me.
There's a different culture, SMU, because they don't have fraternity houses. It's very expensive to be in fraternities and sororities at SMU. You can easily spend, I have parents tell me between $3,000 and $5,000 a month because you have to go rent your space for a party or an event at SMU. But TCU maybe it has done that differently. But TCU is one of those places, Northeastern, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You're starting to see Vanderbilt is, just
Vanderbilt is hot.
Like hot, like centimeters apart from Duke.
It's so funny you say that because I remember feeling Vanderbilt wants to be Duke, but I don't think that they kind of ever will be Duke. And now I have places where I work with kids where Vanderbilt's hotter than Duke.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Especially certain pockets of Florida. Like Vanderbilt is the place. It's like, it literally kind of is, for lack of better words, like the Harvard. It's like the school of first choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I absolutely see that. Doug has done a really good job there. He really has.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And any others?
I think Chapman is really rising quickly.
Oh, okay. Locally. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't have a sense of that. Because I see more LMU, Santa Clara, than Chapman. Of course, the film, everybody's going to want to look at Chapman for film.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, LMU's done such a terrific job because, before they offered a great sort of academic experience, but the campus was a little staid, not much going on. And one of my students, it really came down between USC and LMU. And when they went to look, it just seemed more exciting, more happening on the campus.
I think they show very well right now. LMU, such a great part of the city.
Yeah, safe.
It's just,
lots
it's
going
safe.
on.
The campus is gorgeous. It's got good diversity. It's got good energy. It's that size that a lot of people like. Not, small enough to be real personal, individual attention, but big enough to not feel like I'm seeing the same people all the time and nobody's new. And I'm at this place that feels like high school.
Yeah, it's good people, not always driving towards being super fancy. So for a student who doesn't want that overlay where you can get that, at USC where things can be expensive and fancy, LMU doesn't cater to that kind of student.
When I was there last year, I was talking with one of my students from Chicago at USC. And she was telling me about the $18 smoothies at USC that are disgusting. She's like, you pay $18 and it's not even good.
let me get back there and make it for you. Let me make it taste good. Wow. Yeah.
What about the Southern attraction of all the football? Like, are you seeing like the UGAs and?
Oh my God. UGA, UT, the other place that's really come a long way, we talk about it a lot, but University of Chicago, like if you look at, one of the best schools in the United States. If you look at Harvard Westlake, they send like 20 kids there. And
Yeah.
the value is really high if you've got that student and parent body ready to throw down at Chicago. Chicago is, right there. So they've come a
Well,
long
yeah,
way.
they're quite selective. Like and the one way that I judge is how selective a school is when I see really strong kids that don't get an ED,
Yes.
because that just kind of lets you know how picky they can be. Northwestern's the same thing. Like Northwestern will deny kids that get in incredible schools. I really see that with both of those two schools. Wash U has really come a long ways.
Yeah.
A long ways. All three of them. So you are seeing it with you're seeing a lot of interest in UGA. That wouldn't surprise me. But by the way, they're up another 14% in early action this year again.
Wow. It's a great campus. I have a good friend from college. His son is a sophomore and he has become a Southerner. Like, I can't even believe it. Like, he's from Orange County, which is the South, here in California, that is the South.
I have an Orange County kid in UGA's freshman class, just loving life.
They love it. It's everything
they have want. They have such good balance there. Like you get a great education. They have great job placement, but you still have fun, and that you can have that fun without killing you like you get at other places. I feel like Hopkins sometimes, Carnegie Mellon, even Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is brutal.
Brutal.
Yeah, and so they have the same thing where they have that balance, and then kids get out, they get a good job, they have a lot of fun, and they've got a good network. My daughter graduated from there, and when she applied to her clinical mental health counseling program at NC State, the two highest people, the director and the associate director, were both UGA alums.
Wow.
Yeah.
They produce really quality people. Like some of my closest friends in LA all went to UGA. Five people.
Yeah. Friends, I'm going to be traveling back from Myrtle Beach to Metro Atlanta on Saturday, which is the day normally I do my recording for Monday episodes. So normally I would run part 2 of my session with Vince on next Thursday's episode, but I'm actually going to run it on Monday because with my travel, it's just going to be really hard for me to produce an episode in the next few days. So yeah, you'll get the final part of this discussion on a range of topics with Vince if you tune in on Monday. Okay, friends, let's hear the final part of my interview with Jin Chow at Work Labs.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Friends, we've reached the final part of my interview with Jin Chow on Work Lab. And in this part, Jin shares what are the things that you observe about a student and you say, this is just not going to work for us here at Work Lab in terms of what the employer's needs are. Jin shares the things that she has learned so far about Work Lab. Jin shares what her vision is for what Work Lab can grow into. And friends, Jin's got a big vision. Jin talks about the age limits for Work Lab participants. Jin talks about the value of working with a founder or an entrepreneur. Jin talks about the cost to participate in Work Lab. Jin shares some trends that she's noticing that employers are looking for when it comes to the soft skills that are so important. Jin shares one thing that parents and counselors really need to think about before they sign up for a Work Lab opportunity. And then she shares one other thing that it really takes to be successful at Work Lab. And it's something that students can start working on right now. Jin shares the next steps. And friends, please reach out to Jin at polygence.org. That's Jin at POLYGENCE.org. If either you've enjoyed this interview and you want to share a few words of encouragement for her, or if you just have some additional questions, she encourages you to reach out to her directly. Friends, we close by hearing from a student that I know who participated in Work Lab, and he just shares a few things about his Work Lab experience. Listen and enjoy.
We've also had companies tell us, hey, this student is so amazing. Can we continue keeping in touch with them informally in some way and maybe have them contribute, as a contractor or something. And so those relationships are definitely valuable for both the student and the company, and something that's top of mind.
No, I mean, what a great way for a student to start to begin networking and start to build their network, especially if this is in an area of interest for them. So anytime you pair a student with a host company and a founder, you're putting your imprimatur on the student. And there's an aspect in which your reputation or your judgment either gets enhanced or detracted depending on whether or not the host company thinks that was a fit or a match. So I imagine with that in mind, you can't take every single person that applies so what are the times when you just say, no, this isn't going to work? Like what are the things that you pick up that indicate, I just don't think you're a good fit for a program.
Yes. So the first thing that's very different from our research program is there is a strict age limit. So you have to be 15 or above, just because we need students who are, there are obviously irresponsible 15-year-olds too, but generally we need the student to be a little older, a little more mature, and, able to communicate well and stuff like that. We look for excellent English ability, which we also do in our research program. But here, the spoken English is even more important because obviously all these companies are US based. They need to be able to, communicate well. And we're also looking for students who are very independent, right? Because parents are not going to be allowed on the company Slack. Like, students are signing NDAs. This is a much more professional working environment. And so we hold students to a much higher bar. So in the interview, we're looking for maturity, we're looking for responsibility, we're looking for ability to respond to messages on your own, take initiative. And we've definitely, unfortunately, had to unmatch students from companies when we're just like, when we see that the student is not doing as good of a job that we expect them to, because as you said, it's also our reputation that's on the line. And we promise these companies bright students who will work hard and do well. And sometimes if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. And so, yeah, I think the bar that we hold students to is definitely more professional when it comes to this program. So yeah, it definitely is a selective process, and we do a lot of that vetting through the interview process.
So you're not even a year out yet, but that's still enough time to take in, like you said, dozens of students through this process. What are the things that you're learning? What are the things that maybe you didn't know, 6-8 months ago? Either feedback from your work hosts or from students or from just observations of, wow, there's a super demand in this field, maybe even more than I thought. Like, what are the things that you feel you've learned so far, Jin, in the last 8 months working on this?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I've learned is that there are so few meaningful internship opportunities out there. Like, before we started this, what I've heard from both host companies and from students is that before this program, most internship experiences are you buy them coffee, or you do really menial, you organize drawers, or like something that where the student is not learning anything and it's marginally helpful to the company. And that what makes for a really fulfilling and substantial work experience is when the project is clearly defined. So that's really important. One thing that we've learned is we have to work really hard with the company to define the scope of the project beforehand. And also feedback loops. Students crave feedback. It doesn't work if you let them go for 5 weeks, do this random project, and then give them feedback at the end. Like, they crave iterative, constant feedback, and that's also how they learn. And so working with the host companies to make sure that this is an educational experience. We have to remind them this is not just, a workplace kind of, not your, normal kind of employee relationship. This is an educational experience, and these are high schoolers, these are learners. And so making sure that they get that constant feedback loop and that parents obviously get updated is super, super important. And once we nail that, the feedback from our families and from the students and also from host companies has been glowing, because they feel like this is an experience where they're learning things and honing their own skills.
No, I definitely can attest to the sort of dearth of these types of opportunities. Generally, when I find people end up having these kinds of opportunities, it's usually just through the parent network that some people have and many and others don't have. But like where would somebody even start to like find something like this?
Totally. And like taking my own experience, I managed to get an internship actually at Sotheby's, the art auction house, also just through some random uncle, friend of a friend had, knew of someone. And because it wasn't an organized program, there was no project. I had no idea what I was doing every day. It sounded cool that I was working at this auction house, but there was absolutely no programming, no accountability, no nothing, right? And so that's the the problem that we want to solve is that yes, students want to be able to have work experience, but it also needs to be meaningful, and they also need to be learning things and hopefully contributing to the company. And so working with the companies and almost teaching them how to be educators is a really, really important part of the programming that we've put together.
So do you have a sense of what your vision is for this and where it can go? I was recently at this fundraiser for a school that my kids go to that I support, went to high school that I support. And the headmaster had us all have a card, and he was like, write down on a piece of paper, like your God-sized vision, if money was like no issue, of where you would want us to go with the school. Like, have you put any thought into like, because you're just at the initial phases, like this could really grow into something. I mean, this could be something where people could come back in summers and take on more. I mean, this could eventually be a pipeline for people to identify talent. I mean, there's a lot of places you could go with this, in terms of expanding into other markets or international, or just, have you given that any thought?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the ultimate vision is we want Polygence to become kind of an ecosystem of experiences from academic all the way to vocational, right? And right now we're starting off with the segment of high school, which is where it's so hard to get meaningful internships. With college students is a little bit easier because there are more organized programs and a lot of them are really competitive, but it still exists. But with high school, it just does not exist. So I think the first goal is to complete that kind of ecosystem of enrichment and curiosity building experiences that students can participate in during their high school years. And then I think similarly to research, I think we want to just democratize access to these experiences that previously only kids with the most well-networked parents are able to land, and to be able to expose students to all kinds of different careers and industries, not just, a lot of kids when they think of, internships, they're like, oh, I want to work at Google, or oh, I want to work at Facebook. But to expose them to the fact that there are tons of amazing cutting edge startups doing really meaningful work that you don't even hear about because they're in stealth mode or because they are, they just started. And then I think the vision, I think what you outlined would be really amazing if we could build a pipeline, not just through high school, but also maybe college kids in the future as well, to be able to have a program where students and learners can get exposed to all kinds of companies and careers that don't maybe have formal internship programs, but through us could get some really bright students involved in their work, and then to really build this learning ecosystem from the ground up.
No, that makes so much sense. I recently did an interview with a student at Rochester Institute of Technology, and he went through the whole Microsoft screening process. And, fortunately for him, he got selected, and then they offered him a full-time job contingent on him going back and graduating. But the reason I'm bringing it up, 330,000 people applied for like 3,000 spots. So it's like a 1% acceptance rate, into the program. And so, so there's, I know that mindset, right? I know Microsoft, I know Google, I know Amazon, I know Facebook, I know Meta, whatever, Netflix, like I know these companies. And so, shiny, big, shiny, gravitate there. But, all of those companies had to start in some ways it's kind of more exciting to do something on the ground floor, and maybe it takes off.
Yeah, and to work directly with the founders, right? Like I think that's
Yes.
where a lot of our students, the feedback that we've gotten is that, wow, like I was maybe dreaming of working at a Google or working at a Facebook, but actually now that I'm working with this really small startup, it's actually so amazing because I get to meet daily with the CEO, or I get to, hop on calls with, I don't know, some really senior person. And that's where most of the learning is, right? Because you're right next, working hand in hand with these entrepreneurs and these senior folks where no intern would get that experience at Google, right? Given how big Google is now and what kind of company it is. And so I think part of it is also destigmatizing or maybe changing the perception of what company is worth working at or what company is worth having a relationship with, because there are so many companies doing incredible work that, yeah, students can really learn from. And one I'll just mention that I was looking at, that we recently onboarded a company, is a really cool language solutions company that actually helps businesses with breaking into the Middle East by offering Arabic classes, by offering business and conversational Arabic training for companies. And it's kind of a marketing slash language solutions company that helps other institutions break into the Middle East. And what a cool concept, and students who are interested in languages, but also in marketing and internationalization of products, could find it really cool. So I just think there's so much more than, the tech bubble or the big company bubble that students are thinking about. And I see a lot of parallels with how families and students think about schools, right? They might immediately think of, oh, I want to go to Harvard, I want to go to Princeton, I want to go to Yale. But there are actually so many other schools out there with incredible,
Sure.
incredible programs that might actually be a better fit for them.
That's actually great parallel. It's completely like college admissions. Yeah, point well taken. So we know you have to be at least 15. Do you have an age limit on the upper side?
Good question. No, we don't have an age limit on the upper side. So we haven't yet had adults apply, but we're
Right.
looking forward to being able to expand, beyond the high school age as well.
I was thinking, like, could a college student apply for this, like over the summer between their, freshman and sophomore year? Is that something that would make sense, or kind of not really?
Yes. Yes, we're actually really excited about expanding to college kids. And what we've done is this summer we'll start getting back in touch with Polygence alumni who are in college already to see if they might be interested in coming back to do basically this work experience. And what's really cool is actually the first couple of cohorts, most of the students who ended up applying to Work Lab are existing Polygence students or alumni as well. And so that's part of that ecosystem building that I was mentioning earlier, that we want, there to be a life cycle of experiences that students can do at Polygence from high school. Maybe once they get into college, they want some work experience and they come back to do Work Lab.
There's a huge market out there also for people that have graduated and they haven't found something and they need to get some work experience under their belt. You can't be everything to everybody,
Yes.
but there's a whole market out there for that, right? That potentially you could address, potentially. Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's talk about costs and how does that work?
Yes. So the Work Lab experience is $24.95 US dollars, and we offer payment plans, as well as we're working on our financial aid program, but hopefully, soon we will be able to offer that as well. And part of that is obviously there's a lot of, it's not just we find a company and then we place the student. There's a lot of education that's involved. As I mentioned, we help the companies and the students really scope out the project. We want to make sure that we update the parents. And so there are costs associated with that as well.
So is it your same staff on the Polygence research side doing some of the training logistics, or is it a separate group of people, doing Work Lab?
Right now, it's the same. It's the same
Mhm.
team that's handling both experiences, and there's actually a lot of parallel, right? Like it's managing obviously academic mentors is slightly different than managing host companies, but the idea and the spirit of helping them understand what kind of updates families want, what kind of feedback to give students, is actually very similar. So we have the same team managing both right now.
Are you picking up anything, Jin, in terms of trends where you see there's a demand in the workforce for a certain either skill set, or background and training? Are you picking that up? Like what are the things you're hearing from your work hosts that, boy, we really could use somebody who's good at blank?
Hmm. Yes, but I think it's actually more of a soft skill that they're looking for, which is
Oh, that's
fascinating, right?
fine.
Because AI is
Yeah.
all the hype right now, and you would expect, I don't know, do people want kids who are able to code or who are able to whatever, whatever? But actually, we see more companies telling us that they want hustlers. They want students who don't mind doing menial work in the spirit of learning something bigger or getting to a bigger result. Let me give you an example. We have a company that is working with us, that's a vet, so veterinary sort of software, an AI veterinary AI software company, and they have a bunch of really really cool AI type projects that they want to match with our students on. But their one sort of condition that they're or not condition, but one thing that they're telling us that they want is they want students who are willing to do really, difficult grunt work of data labeling before figuring out how to automate things and then bringing their coding skills to bear to, work on sort of automated processes. And so I think it's really that attitude and that can do attitude and hustle that companies are looking for. And I think in this increasingly automated AI world, that kind of attitude and that kind of what I'm calling maybe soft skill and ability to be resilient and to push through hard things is going to be rarer and rarer, because I think students just aren't really built that way by the system anymore. And so surprisingly, I would say that's what I've seen the most of.
I think that's great. That's great. So Jin, what have we not said about Work Lab that would be important for either a counselor that might recommend this to students they work with, or a parent who's thinking, it sounds like this could be really good for my student? Is there anything we haven't discussed that you feel would be helpful for someone who's potentially interested to know?
I think the only thing is that everybody thinks they want work experience, but the student needs to be ready for it. And so if you're a counselor or a parent, really ask yourself whether this student is independent, whether this student is ready to get their first experience in the work world, because it's obviously different from going to school. You need to be a lot more responsible, a lot more, take a lot more agency. And I think it's about, yeah, the readiness of the student is something that I see a lot of parents and counselors sort of miscalculate. And that's when we have to either reject the student or sort of massage expectations a little bit, or first have them go through, our research experience where there can be a little bit more hand holding. And yeah, that's the main thing I'll say.
So and I'm really glad you said that. That was great. So you specifically pinpointed two things. You talked about independence and responsible. Are there any other things that you would say, you kind of also need this, whether it's listening or ability to get along with people or take directions, or I don't know, anything else that comes to mind that sort of makes for a good fit besides just responsible and independent?
I would actually say communication. So Gen Z, obviously, as we know, is the generation that is not the most communicative, partly because I think of, there's been so many studies on social media and screen time and how it's affected Gen Z's ability to maintain eye contact, to write full sentences, to be communicative. But I think when it comes to succeeding in the work world and succeeding in work lab, being a good communicator, writing well, being able to communicate when things are going well, aren't going well, is uber important. And I think that's also really important training ground for entering the workforce in the future, and obviously also for college. And so I would just add that verbal communication.
So this has been amazing. I'm really excited about all the work you're doing. Listeners, you may not know this, but Jin is just a little bit north of 30. Am I correct on that? Jin?
Yes, I'm still 30.
Yes, still 30. I wasn't sure if you hit the 31 yet. So I say
Not
that
yet.
in a way that really impresses me. So she got honored one of the Forbes 30 under 30s movers and shakers in education, because I'm just excited about what you're going to do in the world over the next 30 or 40 years. So I'm definitely going to be staying in touch with you because you're destined for big things. I think it's fantastic, both of these two big initiatives that you've launched. And tell our listeners what the next step is if they want to either refer it because they're on the college counseling side, or they want their student to explore this, next. What do they do?
Yeah, good question. So for those who are interested in doing work lab or, joining the program in some way, you can just look up Polygence Work Lab on Google. I can send you the link as well, but Polygence Work Lab, and you can apply straight from the website and look at also some of our students' past experiences, companies they've worked with, and, watch some student videos. And then if you're a counselor interested in referring, feel free to actually just send me an email. I'm just at jin@polygence.org. That's JIN@polygence.org. And then I can send you to the right teams to learn more about our program for counselors. And Mark, thank you so much for those kind words. I mean, it's been such a pleasure working with you over the
Thank you. I don't say things I don't believe. And listeners, that's POLYGENCE. POLYGENCE, Polygence. So awesome. Thanks, Jin. And let's keep in touch.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mark. Have a great day.
Yeah, my pleasure. Friends, I mentioned this in my intro, but before we transition to the final part of my interview with Daniel Lachance, our sixth student in a row for the last 6 weeks, after the interview with Jen, I learned about these two outstanding services that Polygence offers. And I tell you, this company just epitomizes the innovation you see in the Silicon Valley applied in an educational context. And I'm just so impressed with just the way they operate and I've gotten to know the leaders over there. They're just always thinking of students first and how can they provide value. I asked Jin if she would go to SpeakPipe and leave a message for our listeners about these two additional services that I didn't even know about. So hopefully you'll enjoy learning about these two services from Jin. And then after that, Daniel Lachance has the mic.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jin Chow, one of the co-founders of Polygence. I'm excited to share with you about the work we're doing here to help students prepare for a bright future with confidence, optimism, and an enduring skill set. Whether you're a student, parent, educator, or simply someone who cares about meaningful learning opportunities, I am thrilled to have you listening. I'll begin by sharing some information about an impactful partnership we have here with the Gifted and Talented Institute at the University of California, Irvine, UCI, which is a top research university. This partnership enables us to award college credits for research papers that are written in our core program. And it's available to high school students with a GPA of 3.3 or higher, and students follow a self-paced curriculum on the writing process from UCI, and then they submit their paper to be evaluated by UCI faculty. Students who receive a grade of C or higher on their papers earn 3 transferable credits under their belt before even starting college. Students writing research papers in our program really love this opportunity to experience college-level instruction and also earning college credit for their hard work. An added benefit of the program is obviously access to world-class resources of UCI's library, as well as online databases. We're also really excited to share some more about a new program for our enrolled students, which gives them access to a new initiative we're very, very excited about. And we're calling it the Thinking Lab. The Thinking Lab is a free learning lab where Polygence students practice the art of original and critical thinking and also intellectual courage. And you might be wondering, why does learning to think matter so much? And why dedicate an entire learning lab to this? Educators, policymakers, thought leaders, and parents today are all incredibly concerned about a pressing reality that their children face. In a world where AI provides shortcuts to anything and everything, social media dominates a child's worldview, and the future brings so incredibly much uncertainty. How will students really learn to think for themselves? Through this lab, students will have an option to take part in monthly workshops, read very useful content, and complete reflective exercises designed to strengthen the skills that help them become the kind of thinker that AI can't and will never replace. With workshops and content topics like how to form your own opinion and how to tackle complex problems, students gain practical thinking skills that will support them throughout their young adulthood. And the best part is that it's included for free for all of our students in all Polygence programming. Thank you so much to your college-bound kid for inviting us to share about these programs that we hope will deliver thoughtful and supportive enrichment to all students. And thanks to you, listener, for supporting innovative educational experiences that are truly responsive to students. I'm really excited for what's ahead, and I hope to see many of your students in a Polygence program soon.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
So, friends, in the final part of my interview with Dan Lachance, student at RIT, we're talking about how to get a great job at the computer science degree. Dan shares some other colleges who he feels have very good cybersecurity programs besides RIT. Dan shares what are the ways in which a good cybersecurity club can really help you. Dan gives our listeners 4 things to look for to know if a cybersecurity club is a strong club that can set you up for success. Dan shares some great questions to ask the club contact so you can learn more about the strength of the club if you want to interview the club president. Dan tells us whether cybersecurity graduates are getting jobs in cybersecurity these days. And Dan shares some real wisdom for our listeners. Dan gives our students advice on how to maximize LinkedIn. Listen and enjoy. Explain, Dan, to our listeners why you are only in your 3rd year in college, but you're going to graduate coming up already. Talk a little bit about what you were able to do with APs and save your family a lot of shekels.
Yes, which I know that they're still thanking me for. But I think I started taking AP courses in my sophomore year of high school, and so I ended up taking about 12 AP classes, I believe, or at least 12 AP exams, since we grouped, but I took all 4 AP physics exams, but it was really only taught as 2 classes at my high school. Um, and so I was going into college with about 50 or so credits, just because, I got a 3 or above on all of those exams, and that's another thing I'll mention in a second. But that, since I had so many credits, that allowed me to kind of wipe out most of my like gen eds, all of my non-cybersecurity classes, and then I could really just focus on stuff that I was interested in. And I don't have to do all the fluff of the universe that the university requires because I already had it. And so that allowed me to, end up graduating in only 3 years. And with as I'm sure you've mentioned on this podcast, you can look up all of like how many credits and what classes you'll get credit for at pretty much every university based off of what AP class you're taking. And I would highly recommend looking at that if you're in uh, like AP courses, because um, some universities the bar will be, say you needed to get a 3 on the exam. You don't need to get a 4 or 5 in order to get credit for it. So that's another one of the reasons why I ended up choosing RIT, because I'm like, oh, hey, I can go here and I'll have 50 credits already. And that just means that I can graduate, a year and a half early if I really wanted to. And that'll save me a ton of money. Whereas if I was looking at those like top level universities like Carnegie Mellon, for example, MIT, um, they the baseline is that you're taking all of those AP classes, and you're taking the AP classes so that you can get into the university. And once you get there, they don't really count for much. Like they don't take they don't apply that to your degree. So that means you're going to be there the full 4 years. And that's one of the reasons I ended up choosing RIT.
Yeah, so Dan's in his third year of college, but he's graduating at the end of the spring, and then we'll head out to Seattle.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So Dan, we talked a little bit when you were on before about some strong programs and for someone who's interested in cybersecurity universities.
Yeah.
Have you gotten to know any others just through your networking and networking with
Yeah.
any clubs? And why don't you? I'm putting you on as the college counselor here, putting the college counselor hat on you. So tell me some other universities that you're impressed with, whether it's their club, their curriculum, the jobs
Yeah.
you're seeing they're getting, and include like, you know, it could be the most incredibly selective school, or it may not be. Just tell me what your thoughts are there about like some other fantastic programs. If there's somebody out there that's listening and they're like, I want to be that guy. So I'm going to look at RIT, but I also can't have a college list of one. So
Yeah.
what are some schools that you'd recommend for strong cybersecurity programs? I remember you said Northeastern when you were on last time.
Yes. Yeah. So there's honestly a bunch going
Hmm.
on.
Hmm.
And I would definitely look for clubs.
Hmm.
And I don't know all of them, but
Hmm.
I do know University of Illinois
Hmm.
Urbana-Champaign has a phenomenal uh, cybersecurity club there. And I would definitely recommend checking them out. Purdue
Hmm.
University has multiple cybersecurity clubs to like really delve into each aspect of security. Georgia Tech has like some club involvement, and one of the big things that I would recommend looking at is CCDC. So that's the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. And so that it's historically been put on by RTX. I'm not really sure if it's sponsored by them anymore. I'd have to look into it. Um, but every single year, they have this big cybersecurity competition, and they post all of the finalists on their website. So each university that is on that finalist, I guarantee you is going to have some really good cybersecurity resources, uh, just because it doesn't just take students to get to uh, at like those high places and place at those competitions do really well every single year because if you think about it. And even the best students are only going to be at that high level for at most like 2 years, maybe 3 years. Um, and so I would say the programs that are doing really, really well year after year says a lot about the resources at that university that they have. So, like the professors, the clubs, the funding, that sort of thing.
Dan, that was fantastic. That was fantastic. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to share for somebody out there maybe considering a computer science career?
Yeah, I mean, I really just want to harp on the importance of internships and extracurricular activities. So it doesn't, with extracurricular activities, it doesn't have to be something specifically in your major. Like, I ended up going to RIT because I knew they had a huge cybersecurity club, but that doesn't have to be the end all be all. Say you're at a university that you're studying computer science, but they don't have a computer science club. One, you could start one if you're very, very passionate about it, but a lot of universities will also have other extracurriculars. So like speed teams. So I know RIT, just for example, has a Formula One racing team. So that's where a bunch of engineers get together and actually make a F1 car and then race it against other universities across the country. And so they have opportunities for computer scientists there. And if I wasn't in the cybersecurity club or if I wasn't in a computer science club, I would absolutely gravitate towards there because, hey, they need programmers. And having that on your resume is going to be way stronger than a good GPA. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, what are the ways in which the club helps you? Because I could look at the club, like, I'm particularly talking about a cybersecurity club at a college.
Yeah.
So I certainly could think of things like you're able to do things with the club that can go on the resume.
Yeah.
I certainly can think of exposure,
Hmm.
to whatever you get exposed to. I can think of the networking options that occur there. How would you break it down if you were to say, here's how being involved in a cybersecurity
Yeah.
club ends up helping you eventually in the job market?
I would say pretty much like all of those things.
Hmm.
So where do I even start? We have like upskilling opportunities where upperclassmen are teaching underclassmen stuff that they really won't teach until like the third year of the curriculum, but that allows them to get ahead and be an amazing applicant if they're so inclined to put in the extra time. And so a lot of those people are the ones that I'm seeing getting first year internships and co-ops. But other than that, we host two major competitions every single year. So like those are red versus blue. Defenders are all on one side. We have generally about 18 teams of five defenders, and they are trying to defend their computers from the red team, so the attackers in the other room trying to take all of the computers down. We offer a certification program, so with a lot of our club funding, we actually give some of that funding and we spend some of that funding in order to buy certification vouchers. So I mentioned those certifications before. We have a similar program. And then I would argue that probably the two biggest things that I have gotten out of my cybersecurity club are the networking and the leadership experience. So the leadership experience is kind of self-explanatory, but with the networking, one thing that I love that our club does is one of our main sponsorship benefits. Companies will give us money in order to like support our club since we're a registered nonprofit under RIT. Um, what we do for them then, well, one of the many things we do, I would say the biggest, is that we host a career fair eve, actually two career fair eve events every single semester. So the two nights prior to the wider RIT career fair, we have a private career fair for just cybersecurity professionals and just our sponsors that are looking to hire, young cybersecurity professionals. So generally, we have about this semester we had about eight companies between the two to come, and that allows me to, talk to a lot of these recruiters. If I wanted to get a job at pretty much any one of them, I think they would end up hiring me. And it also means that we have like these 200, 250 members and we're providing them opportunities outside of what RIT is in order to get co-ops. So we have six companies that are each hiring like every single year between 6 and 10 co-ops or interns just for cybersecurity. And if our club ends up getting, five or so of our members at each one of those, that's 30 students that we just got an internship for. And that's really an opportunity that if you're not super involved in the club, you're not really going to get.
Wow, that's great how the club's doing the business networking, like right when you're in college, meeting recruiters, doing career fairs. So there's a high correlation between clubs and connections and networking. Um,
Absolutely.
and this is great. This is only the second time we've really done a deep dive on clubs. Jennifer Mandel from Milwaukee, she did a fantastic job talking about the importance of business clubs to
Yeah.
getting into. She talked about how her son Oliver was able to leverage the business clubs to get into
Yeah.
investment banking opportunities, and I've seen that over and over with students. But we've
Yeah. One of
never.
my friends did the same thing at
Mhm,
University of Massachusetts.
mhm.
He is now working at, I believe, Citibank.
Yeah. No, I've definitely seen it there. I've got students right now at a number of places, Northwestern Michigan, a number of places that are using those clubs to get their op in Georgia, TCU. But this is
Absolutely.
really the second time we've really delved deeply into clubs. Now, I can see some of our listeners saying to themselves, okay, Dan, I'm sold. Clubs are extremely important. I wasn't thinking so much about clubs, but now I am. But how can I tell if a school has a good cybersecurity club? So, what would be your advice to our listeners? And we know there are a lot of people interested in computer science.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest areas. Like when I think of, okay, all the families that I work with over the years, what are the most common majors? I'd say it's stuff in the medical field and computer science engineering, like those, and business. Those are
Yeah.
the biggest categories. If I just by percentage or numbers. So it's a sizable number of people that are interested in this field. So share what you know, because I could definitely see someone saying, I don't know, what am I supposed, I could go on their website, I could look up and see if they have a club listed under their clubs, but how do I know if it's any good?
Yeah.
Give them some advice to ascertain whether or not a club is robust or any good.
Yeah. So I would say that most cybersecurity clubs, if they're, you know, if they're worth going to, if they're worth picking a school just because of that club, they're going to have a website themselves. So I know RITSEC, we have a website. I know a couple of Purdue teams have their own website, and I know like UIUC has their own website. So I would say start with searching up the university, look up if they have a cybersecurity club at all, and then just like copy and paste their club cybersecurity name into, or their cybersecurity club's name into like a web browser and just search it up. And if a website comes up and they have like but it could be a lot of things. If they have a really good schedule where it shows they have a lot of stuff going on every single week, like there's clear work going into the club, they have research, they host competitions, and they possibly might have competition teams of themselves. So if they're hosting competitions, and so either capture the flag challenges, which if you don't know what capture flags challenges are. They're pretty much just like miscellaneous cybersecurity challenges that are all like within a web interface, and what the flag is just like a random string of characters that you're not supposed to guess, and you're supposed to do a challenge in order to get it and submit it. So if they have a capture the flag team, or if they host a capture the flag competition, I would say that's probably one of the best indicators of a good program. And then, like I said before, CCDC, Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition, that's the blue teaming one. And then Collegiate Penetration Testing Competition, that's the red team, attack one. So there's the defense and then there's the attack. Looking for those things is what I would probably say. So competition teams, if they host competitions, if they have educational resources, so maybe on YouTube or something, I know that's what we do, and then if they have a website. Those are probably the four things that I would look for, and if they have all four, I think you hit the jackpot. And so I know of a couple of universities that have all four, and yeah, I would definitely recommend going to those.
That was
So
great.
like your UT Austin, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, RIT. I know that those three universities have all of them.
I would think Maryland would. That's another school you looked at, don't they, or not? I mean,
Yes,
they're because it's a
I
very
I
strong cyber school.
I believe they do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if they have the capsule flag
Mm-hmm.
aspect of it, but I know they have the competition teams, they have a club, they have all that.
So if someone doesn't have a capture the flag, would you just off of that, would you like sort of brand them second tier? Is it that important or not
No,
necessarily?
no.
Okay. Okay.
I
Okay.
wouldn't say it's that important, but
Mm-hmm.
if you're hosting competitions, like we
Mm-hmm.
have a capture the flag competition,
Mm-hmm.
but we also have a red versus blue competition, like I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned before. So we have one in the fall, one in the spring, and I would say that's probably one of the points where our underclassmen are learning the most, and our upperclassmen that are making the competition. That becomes part of their resume and just like their applicant identity. And it's something that they talk about every single time they interview at some place. And so I would say as long as you have three of those four things that I mentioned, you're good.
And one of the other ones you mentioned was if they have a schedule,
Yeah.
take a look at the schedule so you can see what types of things they're actually doing, right? I thought that
Yeah.
was a really good one. So I'm going to give a tip as well, listeners. Most of the time when you see a club, if they have one,
Yeah.
then there's going to be a club contact there, right? And
Yes.
you should feel free to reach out and say, "Listen, I'm a high school junior, I'm a high school sophomore, I'm a high school senior. I'm seriously considering your school, and one of the things that has me excited is your cybersecurity club. Would it be okay if we either did a Zoom call or could I email you some questions?"
Yeah. I've
I'm
done
sure.
that.
Yeah,
I've done that with some people.
yeah, yeah. So if someone was to do that, are there any questions you can think of besides the ones you've listed that you would want to ask somebody? Like one that comes to mind for me, and I learned this from you when you were on the last time, is RIT has one of the largest clubs in the country. I would think there's a difference between a club of 70 and a club of three, you
Yeah.
know? So I mean, I would always be curious what the size of the club is. I don't know if you think that's a valid question, but
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The size of the club is not only important based off of the opportunities and like what you're able to accomplish while you're
Mm-hmm.
there,
Mm-hmm.
but also your alumni network once you leave.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of universities will have an alumni network, but it's not really like a tight-knit group. Um, I've found that if you're really involved in a club, you start meeting the all of these alumni that are at these amazing companies all over the US, and they're all willing to help you because you are involved, like super involved in that club that gave them all of this experience and opportunity.
That's great. Any other questions that you put yourself back in high school? But your knowledge that you have now,
Yeah.
and you're reaching out and you see, oh, I see a club here. I don't know that much about it. I see a contact. I'm going to reach out to the contact to learn a little bit more about the club. Are there any questions that you would have besides the ones you've already shared, for the leader of the club?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably just say, hey, what does your club do? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are
Mm-hmm.
you proud of that your club does? And so
Mm-hmm.
I just listed a bunch of the ones that I'm proud of for
Yeah.
us. How big is the club?
Mm-hmm.
And what is your alumni network like?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Another thing that I really like that you said is, I mean, your club is very involved in like job fairs, it looks like,
Yes.
you know, is that a good question, or is that one that you're likely going to get the answer is probably going to be no, like you have a big club and you can do that, or do you think that's a fair question to ask?
I think oftentimes only the really big clubs are going to
Mm-hmm.
have that.
Yeah.
So if
Mm-hmm.
your club has, at least 80 members, I'd
Mm-hmm.
probably say. If your club has about 80 members, I could see you bringing in maybe two companies
Mm-hmm.
from the area to hire from there. Because once you have any less than that, it's not really worthwhile for the company to come out and
Sure.
like recruit from your club,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just going to go to the big career fair.
That makes sense. So do you find, Dan, as the president, that companies are like contacting you or somebody within the cybersecurity club to do network? Like, do you see people proactively reaching out as opposed to just exclusively going through career centers?
Yes, so we have, um, in order to like sponsor our club, we do have like companies reach out specifically to me or our director of PR just out of the blue because they heard about us and that we have strong applicants. And so I could probably leverage those connections in order to get a job if I needed one, and just as a lot of the team could as well. Because if these organizations are coming to us saying that they want to hire us, it will hold a lot of weight saying that you're on the executive board of that club.
I'm impressed that you have a director of PR. You sound like a Fortune 500 company over here, Dan. Look at you. And a director of PR for your club. It's impressive.
Yeah, yes, we do.
Do you think most of the cybersecurity grads at RIT will get jobs in cybersecurity?
Oh, without a doubt.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
just like between having co-op experience and just doing extracurricular activities and
Hmm.
competing in competitions, um, I would say I think our placement rate for uh, like jobs is about 94% this year, and that even dropped from 100% the year before just because of some of the budget cuts that I talked about.
Wow. It's pretty
Yeah,
high. That's 19 out of 20.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow.
It's
That's
very, very high.
And this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you coming back a second time.
Of course.
You were the teacher, and all of us were the students. I have learned a lot from this. I'm very, very excited to bring this to our listenership. You don't have to go on the hot seat. That's the first time only, so you survived that. But any parting words of wisdom as we sign off here? What are your thoughts?
Um, I would pretty much just say do your due diligence with
Mhm.
looking for colleges and don't get so hung up on that acceptance rate. Mainly just focus on where you're going to be a best fit and what school is going to give you the best opportunities for your career.
And you're a walking billboard for like strength of program, right? Like
I
when
would say I am.
yeah, like sometimes when you say to somebody don't look at acceptance rate, they interpret
Yes.
that as you're asking them to not look for quality. And
Yeah.
that's not what we're saying,
No, not
right?
at all.
Not at all. We're saying there are always going to be schools
Hmm.
that, say yes more than they say no, but they have
Yeah.
incredibly strong programs.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll have this conversation with families that are interested in international relations, and right away, of course, they kind of gravitate to Georgetown. Some of them
Yeah.
will gravitate to Tufts. It's got a really good program, or Brown or some of the Ivies. And then I'll start talking about, GW and American,
Yeah.
and they tend not to be as prestigious. So sometimes people have a tendency to sort
Hmm.
of put them in the second tier, and I'll literally show them the number of kids that get a master's in international relations or poli sci. Top three schools in the country are Georgetown, GW, and American. Over 300 kids a year are getting masters, and then you see high levels of doctorates. And there's no other school in the country that has that number. And I'm trying to sort of bolster the credentials of this. Like, this is an incredibly strong program, and you're in DC.
Yeah.
And it might not be a sweatshirt that's gonna wow anybody in the with the peers, or a bumper sticker that's gonna make someone bump into you. But let's see who ends up with the job, in their field, in their major 5 years
Yeah.
later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just, 4 years down the line when you're working for like the White House or for Congress in international relations, uh, having that position in that LinkedIn title, if you have LinkedIn, is going to hold a lot more weight. And me personally, I think uh, I have it right behind me. My Microsoft security sweatshirt is, I think that's a lot cooler than having, say, a Carnegie Mellon sweatshirt.
Yeah, especially when the goal of going to Carnegie Mellon is to see if you can maybe get the Microsoft gig, right? Besides, obviously, college is not just about the job, but nobody's paying this kind of money and not hoping to land a good job. Last
Exactly.
question: do you have any advice for how students can use LinkedIn?
So, high school students or college students?
Either one.
Okay. High school students, I don't think it's really all that important in order to have one. It may be useful to like already have one, the summer before you head into university, just so you're already ready to start adding stuff there. But once you get to college, I would highly recommend making a LinkedIn just immediately and start connecting with people and start building that network because networking is extremely important in finding a job. And I know it has helped me in the past with just like talking to the alumni network for the club. Um, but I would recommend just keeping it up to date with sometimes your courses, put those on there if you have a lot of standout courses. Your university, any co-ops or internships that you've done, and then post on it when you do stuff that you're really, really proud of. So say you place like top three in a big competition that you prepared a lot for, share that. Make a post of it, and once recruiters are taking a look at your LinkedIn, they can scroll down and they can see your extracurricular involvement and show that you showed initiative.
Dan, once again, I appreciate you. I'm excited to see what you're going to do in your life to make your mark on this world and make it a better place. So thanks so much for coming back a second time.
Of course, of course.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
No, I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Friends, on Monday's episode, Vince and I will just chit chat, and you'll hear the final segment of us just talking about a range of topics in college admissions. And then we've got a brand new interview, but it's not a brand new interviewee. It's Evan Mandery, author of the book Poison Ivy. And Evan is back. He's written a powerful piece for Mother Jones, and it has to do with how elite colleges are steering kids to 3 professions. So Evan and I will be talking about that for 3 weeks in a row. We also bounce around and just cover a range of different topics. So look for a brand new interview on Monday. And friends, if you heard my interview with Jay Hamilton, author of the book You Got In, Now What? Subtitled 100 Insights into Finding Your Best Life in College, you may remember that I said to Jay at the very end, hey, Jay, your chapter is like 300 words. Would you be okay if I read some of them from time to time to our listeners? I'm not infringing on any copyrights, am I? Jay's like, I'd be honored if you did that. So that's what I'm going to do today. I got really encouraged this week when a podcast listener reached out and said, I bought 3 copies of Jay's books. People are buying these books as gifts. And I love it when we're getting quality knowledge out there to the people we care about. So this is a chapter. It's actually chapter 2. And I love this chapter. And it's called Don't Live Another's Script. Don't live another's script. I'm very disappointed. I'm not sure you'll ever amount to anything. That's what Carly Fioruna's father said when she announced that she was quitting law school after 3 months. Law was central to her father's career, first as a professor and then as a federal judge. When Carly graduated from college, Fiorina believed her family expected her to follow her father's path. Several months of law school left her uninspired, sleepless, and racked with headaches. Deliverance came in the form of a Sunday morning shower when she realized, it's my life. I can do what I want. Her parents were disappointed, but she was happy. She recalls, at 22 years old, at that moment, it finally dawned on me, my life couldn't be about pleasing my parents. She took a job as a receptionist, discovering a love of business and people. Fiorina ended up as the CEO of Hewlett-Packard and ran for the Republican presidential nomination in 2016. Sandra Day O'Connor had a different reaction to the law, but a similar insistence on finding her own way. She went through undergrad and law school in 6 years, rejected her parents' attempt to set her up with a potential match from a very wealthy family. She wrote to them, it's my life, and I want to lead an interesting life. I want to study, practice law. Please be tolerant of my ideas, and simply because I want something different from you, don't think it is wrong or wrong for me. O'Connor graduated in the top 10% of her law class, but could not get a single interview for an associate position at a law firm. She persevered and years later became what she called the FWOTSC, In other words, the first woman on the Supreme Court. Chapter 2 from Dr. J. Hamilton's book, You Got In, Now What? Subtitled, Don't Live Another's Script. See you on Monday, friends. And that's our show. Big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you will get every single episode as soon as they are released. If you want to support our podcast, you can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can say positive things about your college-bound kid on your social media feed. And you can help us stay commercial-free and pay our staff by donating on the yourcollegeboundkid.website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. And if you have a question or a recommendation, just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK, hit the orange button, and speak. We will do our best to get your question in your own voice on an upcoming episode. I am the producer of the podcast, and I live in Metro Atlanta. We have a fantastic team that has over 200 years of admissions and counseling experience. Shout out to our co-hosts, Dr. Lisa Ruff in North Carolina, Susan Tree in Pennsylvania, Vince Garcia in California, Julia Esquivel in Massachusetts, Linda Depker in Missouri, Andy Strickler, the Chief Enrollment Officer at Connecticut College, New London, Connecticut, Hillary Dickman, an Admission Officer at Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and our International Admissions Expert, Kevin Newton in Dallas, Texas. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Matvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs from Kimberly Bloss. Our reliable webmaster is Stylionis Dimitru. Website updates are done by Joyce Stucker. Our image editor is Vlad Honchar. If you want to have a coaching session with me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you want to reach someone else on our team, all of our bios with contact info can be found at yourcollegeboundkid.com under the About YCBK tab. If you want to get our free monthly YCBK newsletter, YCBK Plus, it is also under the About YCBK tab. If you want to see our recommended books and websites, they are on our website under the Resources tab. While you're on our website, check out our hundreds of interviews in their entirety. Check out our college spotlights, our blog, and our upcoming events. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting with you every single Monday and every single Thursday.